To celebrate my acceptance into a prestigious university, Alice took me out to a restaurant. At the table, I handed her the admission brochure, my eyes full of anticipation.
I want to apply to this school.
Let me see that.
Alice picked up the brochure, sipped her tea, and examined it carefully. The more she read, the tighter her frown became. By the end, she slammed her teacup down, shattering it.
Going so far away? I see, you just want to abandon me and John.
Margaret had always said that Alice was an extreme egotist. I guess she was worried that once I left, I would never come back, leaving no one to take care of her in her old age. People at nearby tables turned to look. I had to lower my voice to persuade her.
It's just studying abroad. How is that abandoning you? One sigh.
Before I could finish, Alice grabbed my ear.
Smooth talker. You just don't want to support us in our old age.
Her manicured nails dug painfully into my ear, and tears involuntarily welled up in my eyes. I looked at John, but he just brushed off the sleeve of his worn-out suit and continued eating. Alice had married into our family, and John had always felt indebted to her, indulging her in every way over the years. With such a big accusation, the people around us looked at me with disdain.
Kids these days, they study so much they forget to repay their parents.
Crying for sympathy? This kind of child should be taken home and taught a lesson about filial piety.
Seeing the crowd side with her, Alice's vanity was greatly satisfied. She even started shouting.
Everyone, judge for yourselves. I worked so hard to get her into college, and now she wants to abandon her parents. What kind of logic is that?
I had always aspired to study medicine, and this school was the best medical school I could get into. I never intended to abandon my parents, I just wanted to get closer to my dream within my options.
It's not. Once I succeed.
I know you too well. Once you succeed, you'll look down on us even more.
The floor, what with spilled tea, was slippery, and I fell to the ground. Glass shards pierced my palm, but I felt no pain. I just felt like I was being stripped naked and judged in public. I wiped my tears and ran out of the restaurant, feeling utterly humiliated. Not long after leaving, Joanna received news that Margaret was critically ill. Margaret was the person who treated her the best. She had never eaten cake in her life but once walked across half the city to buy Joanna a birthday cake. After hanging up the phone, the words critically ill kept echoing in her mind. Joanna rushed to the hospital without thinking, only to be jolted back to reality by the screeching brakes of a truck.
Do you want to get yourself killed?
Joanna realized she had run a red light and almost got hit by a truck. When she reached the hospital room, Margaret was already hooked up to numerous tubes, lying on the bed making labored breathing sounds.
After you left, Alice called Margaret to complain about you. Unexpectedly, Margaret scolded Alice harshly. This led to a huge argument between Alice and Margaret, which triggered Margaret's acute heart condition.
Joanna, you're here, cough cough.
Joanna's heart tightened, and she rushed towards the room. But Alice shut the door behind her.
Humph, I know your little schemes too well. Let me tell you, don't think you can use my mom against me. And don't even think about getting a penny of her money, it's all mine.
Margaret had always said Alice was selfish, but Joanna had been too focused on her studies to truly encounter situations that affected Alice's interests. Now she finally understood Alice's true nature. She would forsake anyone for her own benefit. Suddenly, the life support monitor started beeping, and medical staff rushed into the room. Through the window on the door, Joanna saw Margaret struggling to repeat the word Joanna. In her final moments, she was calling for her, but the door separating them was shut by her own daughter.
Mom, please let me in.
Perhaps Joanna's plea softened Alice. She suddenly smiled and took out her phone.
We're all family, there's no need to make such a fuss. Promise on camera that you won't use my mom against me and that you won't covet her inheritance, and I'll let you in.
Hearing the increasingly frantic footsteps of the medical staff, Joanna took the phone and, trembling, began.
I swear.
But before she could finish, the life support monitor emitted a long, continuous beep. The medical staff came out and shook their heads at Joanna regretfully. Margaret was gone. It felt as if all her strength had been drained, and she collapsed to the floor. The phone fell with a thud.
My new phone! It cost me thousands.
Taking advantage of her distraction, Joanna finally rushed into the room, only to see Margaret staring fixedly at the door, her eyes still open. Thanks to Alice, Margaret died with her eyes wide open.
I always aspired to study medicine. This school is the best medical school I could get into. I never intended to abandon my parents. I just wanted to get closer to my dream within my options.
It's not. Once you succeed.
Once I succeed.
I know you too well. Once you succeed, you'll look down on us even more.
The floor, wet with spilled tea, was slippery, and Joanna fell to the ground. Glass shards pierced her palm, but she felt no pain. She just felt like she was being stripped naked and judged in public.
I wiped my tears and ran out of the restaurant, feeling utterly humiliated.
Within minutes, I received a call from David, saying someone had reported me for cheating in the college entrance exam. If the relevant authorities started an investigation, it could affect my application to my desired school. After hanging up, I looked at Alice, who seemed to be watching a good show. With a sudden realization, I tentatively asked, "Do you know why the school contacted me?"
Of course, you bought cheating devices, and I reported you.
My eyes widened instantly. I had never bought any cheating devices. How could Alice falsely accuse me so confidently?
Seeing me stunned, Alice suddenly became amiable. She walked over, ruffled my hair as if affectionately, and handed me another admission brochure. I know you want to study medicine. This school also offers medical courses.
It was a local vocational school that opened last year, one that I could get into even with half my score. With a thud, I slammed the brochure onto the table. I can get into a top medical school. I won't apply to this one.
Don't be silly. You can't get into a top medical school. I just need to tell a few more lies to the Education Bureau, and the investigation will drag on. The admission process won't wait for you.
Once again, I was left speechless by Alice's shamelessness.
Seeing me stunned, Alice laughed triumphantly. She slowly slumped onto the sofa, crossing her legs. Becoming a doctor has such high requirements. How long do you have to study before you start making money? This school is affiliated with the county hospital. After graduation, you can become a caregiver and earn a few hundred a day. After all, I'm your mother. Trust me, I won't harm you.
In the end, Alice just wanted to keep me by her side and make me earn money quickly, ultimately living off my efforts. I finally understood that to Alice, a self-serving person, both Margaret and I were just tools in her life. At that moment, I didn't know what came over me. I slammed my hands on the table and shouted at Alice. "I'm an adult now. I have my own freedom. I don't need you to make decisions for me."
Alice kicked over the table and pointed angrily at my nose. Yelling at me? Let me tell you, if it weren't for me, you'd be nothing but a useless embryo. You've been freeloading off me for 18 years, and now you tell me you don't need me to make decisions?
While I was stunned, Alice grabbed my hair, forcing me to lift my head high.
If you have the guts, shave off this hair, lose this flesh, and then talk to me about freedom. Think you can fly away? Let me tell you, you'll spend the rest of your life by my side, taking care of me.
Alice was right. Without her, I might not be where I am today. My palm clenched tightly for so long that I tasted blood in my mouth, realizing I had bitten my lower lip.
If you let me go to school, I'll repay everything I owe you, okay?
Do you know how much it cost to raise you for 18 years? Can you repay that?
Feeling a surge of adrenaline, I grabbed a piece of paper and slapped it against Alice's chest.
Name your price, and I'll repay it.
10 million. Write it down, and you can do whatever you want.
I don't know what came over me, but I immediately wrote the 10 million promissory note.
Here you go.
After grabbing my documents, I ran towards the school without looking back. Just as I stepped out, I bumped into John.
Did you argue with your mom again?
Overwhelmed with emotion, I felt like my parents were in cahoots, trying to hold me back.
I never want to see you again.
Taking advantage of John's pain, I ran, leaving their arguing voices far behind.
Why chase her? With this 10 million promissory note, she'll never escape.
Joanna finally came home, and you're causing trouble again.
What? Are you talking back to me too?
They say there's always a way out. After hearing about my recent experiences, the school explained the situation to the relevant authorities. After reviewing the exam footage and conducting a thorough investigation, the authorities decided to let me proceed with my application as planned. However, I had to sign a commitment letter stating that if any cheating was discovered later, my admission would be revoked. Fortunately, due to my good exam results, the school helped me apply for special funding, covering my first year's tuition. After staying at David's house for a month, I began my new life amidst the fragrance of gardenias. But I didn't expect that a month after school started, John would send me 20,000 yuan.
You'll need money while you're away. This is all I can help you with for now.
The family's finances were controlled by Alice, so John must have borrowed this money from colleagues and friends. I wanted to return the money immediately, but due to mobile banking limits, I had to wait until the next day. But early the next morning, Alice showed up. Emily always dreamed of studying medicine, and she finally got into the best medical school she could. She never intended to leave her parents behind, she just wanted to pursue her dream.
It's not like that. Once I succeed,
I know you too well. Once you succeed, you'll look down on us even more.
The floor was wet with spilled tea, and Emily slipped, falling to the ground. Glass shards pierced her palm, but she felt no pain, just humiliation.
I can't believe this is happening.
She wiped her tears and ran out of the restaurant, feeling utterly humiliated. Alice's words before she left me unsettled. Sure enough, within a few days, Michael called me to his office. As soon as I reached the office door, I heard Alice's familiar, sharp voice.
That 20,000 yuan was her grandmother's life-saving money, and she tricked her father into giving it to her. I'm ashamed to have raised such a daughter. Please, let me take her home and re-educate her.
I immediately understood that Alice wanted to use the school to force me back home and then find ways to profit from me. Inside the office, several department heads were sitting with Alice, and Michael was pouring her water.
Miss Shen, we called you here mainly to understand the situation.
Sir, don't blame my daughter, it's my fault for not raising her well.
An elderly leader was visibly moved and gently patted Alice's back.
My daughter is the same age. I understand the difficulties of being a parent.
Seeing this, Michael quickly handed Alice a cup of water and softly comforted her.
Ma'am, don't worry. We won't make things difficult for the child.
Alice wiped her tears and took the cup, her manicured nails tapping rhythmically on the cup's surface. I knew that despite her sorrowful appearance, she was actually feeling triumphant. But this time, I was not unprepared.
I took out my phone and secretly sent a message to Jessica, then pulled out my WeChat chat records.
Every word and sentence revealed the truth behind my college application and my entry into university. By the time they finished reading, the department heads' faces were ashen. When I took out the million-yuan IOU, the elderly leader immediately stood up.
Slandering your own daughter? As a parent, you're a disgrace to all of us. Michael, contact the law school immediately. We need to provide our student with the legal support she deserves.
Hearing the word legal, Alice quickly grabbed her bag and stood up.
You're all in this together. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
She scurried out like a frightened mouse. Just as she reached the door, she was stopped by Linda.
You sneaky woman, daring to sneak into the girls' dormitory. You got away last time, but not this time.
Behind her were Jessica and several tall police officers. Alice looked at the group in front of her in terror and collapsed to the ground. Since no serious harm was caused, the police only gave Alice a verbal warning. Perhaps the lack of severe consequences emboldened her, and a month later, she began spreading false rumors about me on social media. She claimed that John and I were in cahoots, that the school was shielding me, and that the police were incompetent.
A daughter like this should have been drowned at birth. This man is terrible, forgetting his wife's hardships. Once he has a child, he should be punished. Strongly urge the education department to investigate the school. There must be collusion.
Even though the school issued a statement, the public opinion only grew more intense. Helpless, I had to call Alice.
If you ruin me, who will pay your debts? This doesn't benefit you at all.
Ruining you makes me feel good and live longer. Do you think calling the police can threaten me? Telling a few lies, the police can't do anything to me. Want to reconcile? Fine. Apologize publicly online, then drop out and come home to work and support me.
Initially, I didn't want to escalate things, but Alice's attitude truly angered me. Unexpectedly, just as I was organizing the relevant evidence, John, who never used social media, appeared. In just an hour, he posted 10 tweets.
No collusion, no lack of understanding for my wife. Being a man is really tough. Don't blame my daughter or the school, it's my fault for being incompetent. I'm the one who forced my wife to stop our daughter from studying abroad, and I'm the one who caused my mother-in-law's passing.
John took all the blame upon himself. The public opinion shifted dramatically, and John became the sole target of criticism.
So the mother and daughter are innocent. This man deserves to die. What kind of karma did he accumulate in his past life to meet such a man in this one?
No matter how harshly the netizens cursed, he never retaliated. For John's sake, I quickly organized the evidence, preparing to give Alice a significant counterattack. But 2 hours later, John updated with 2 more tweets.
Wife, I was wrong. Please come back. Joanna, remember, Daddy will always love you.
Sensing something was wrong, I called John countless times, but he hung up every time. Fearing for his safety, I hurriedly made the evidence public and rushed home. I had always aspired to study medicine, and this school was the best medical school I could get into. I never intended to abandon my parents, I just wanted to get closer to my dream within my options.
It's not. Once I succeed.
I know you too well. Once you succeed, you'll look down on us even more.
The floor, what with spilled tea, was slippery, and I fell to the ground. Glass shards pierced my palm, but I felt no pain. I just felt like I was being stripped naked and judged in public. I wiped my tears and ran out of the restaurant, feeling utterly humiliated. Alice was the most eye-catching person in the park. She wore a bright red dress, a red hairpin, and had delicately applied blush, looking radiant. She was a stark contrast to my father, John, who stood beside me with a stubbly face, pale complexion, and hunched posture. At that moment, she was practicing lifts with her dance partner, an elderly man. I knew this man. He was 10 years older than Alice, had recently lost his spouse, and was a highly sought-after diamond bachelor in the community. Alice was holding his hand, guiding it along her waist.
Yes, use more strength here, so you can lift me up.
Youth is great. Your figure is much better than those old ladies.
About that dress yesterday.
Buy it. How else are we going to win?
I looked worriedly at John, who remained silent, but I saw his shoulders trembling, and his face was already wet with tears. The park wasn't large, and Alice soon noticed John and me. After a cheek-to-cheek kiss with the old man, Alice gracefully walked over to John.
Didn't someone say they would give me an explanation? Teaming up with this ungrateful daughter to upset me, is that your explanation?
I understand, you need to think more about yourself, but I'm not gone yet.
It'll be too late when you're gone. This old man is in high demand now. I have to act fast. If you're going to leave, hurry up. Don't end up dragging me down when you fail.
John was so shocked by Alice's shamelessness that he couldn't speak. The standoff was interrupted by a young voice.
Isn't this the Black Widow from Weibo?
Turning around, a few young people were pointing at Alice. After I revealed the truth, the fire on Weibo had finally reached reality.
This is the woman who falsely accused her daughter and ended up in the police station herself.
Not only that, she forced her husband to take all the blame online. She's a real piece of work.
Whoever marries this woman is in for a lifetime of bad luck.
The young people's discussion quickly drew the attention of the crowd, including the old man. He angrily walked over and yanked off Alice's hairpin.
Give me back the hairpin. Your husband is right here, and you lied to me that he was gone? I'm not that stupid.
With her hair falling loose, Alice, who had looked so refined, suddenly appeared extremely disheveled. The elderly men and women who had been dancing nearby began to scorn her.
Get lost, don't dance with us.
Someone like you standing here is an insult to my eyes.
Your husband is still alive, and you're out here seducing men. The world is really going downhill.
Alice, being cursed by everyone, looked like a rat crossing the street, wanting to find a hole to crawl into but unable to. Helpless, she covered her head and tried to leave the park immediately. But John grabbed her.
I've thought it through. Let's get a divorce.
With no hope from the wealthy old man, Alice naturally disagreed with the divorce.
We're going through with this, Alice.
Forced by John's determination, Alice reluctantly accompanied him to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Unexpectedly, during the cooling-off period of their divorce, Alice found another man in a different community. Under Rachel's guidance, I found Alice in another park. She was in a red dress, looking fragile as she leaned into another old man's arms. The man, dressed in designer clothes, was clearly wealthy. I had seen him online before. He appeared respectable but was notorious.
The dress is a small matter. The main thing is your performance.
We've been together for so many days, you know how I am.
Of course I know, otherwise, I wouldn't have missed you so much these days.
He leaned in to kiss Alice's neck.
We agreed, only after marriage.
I sneered, seeing through her calculated plan to split the assets after marriage.
Let's get married. I'm here to marry you today.
Alice's face lit up with joy as she eagerly grabbed the household registration book, examining it carefully.
I knew you were sincere.
But you have to show me some sincerity too.
He gestured towards a nearby hotel. Trusting him because she held the registration book, Alice reluctantly followed him. At the hotel front desk, a red-haired man was holding a scantily clad woman and teasingly said,
"Old man, how much did you spend?"
The old man chuckled and went upstairs with Alice. Seizing the opportunity, I immediately called the authorities and booked a room next to theirs. Hearing Alice's sharp cries, I quickly grabbed my phone and rushed out of my room. Entering their room, I saw Alice, half naked, clinging to the old man, her face full of fear and surprise.
You wretch! You!
Stop it, show your identification first.
I stuck out my tongue and secretly gave Alice a V sign, then reluctantly left the scene. The video on my phone was enough to keep me amused for a long time. With evidence of infidelity, Alice was ordered to leave the house with nothing. John helped prove that Joanna had written the $1 million IOU under duress, and the court declared it invalid. After that, John sold the house and moved them away completely. Joanna finished her studies and finally became a respected doctor.
To fulfill my legal obligations, I sent Alice 2,000 yuan every month as support. I thought life would continue this way, but one day, Alice suddenly showed up at my door.
Alice, now with a face full of wrinkles, kept rubbing her hands together, her fingertips covered in black dirt. In just a few years, she looked 20 years older.
Joanna, you're still young and need the money more than I do. I don't need the support money, you keep it. Life is hard alone. For the sake of our blood ties, can you let me live with you?
Rachel had told Joanna that Alice's reputation was ruined by a nasty old man, and no one in the community wanted to associate with her. With John selling the house, Alice had nowhere to go and had to move back to the dilapidated house in the countryside. Because she had caused Margaret's death, Rachel's family refused to have any contact with her. She was truly alone now.
Blood ties? When you caused Margaret's death, falsely accused me of cheating, made me write $1 million IOU, and even chased me to school to get me expelled, where was the talk of blood ties then? You said you wanted someone to support you in your old age. Aren't I fulfilling your wish now?
Alice's tears flowed instantly.
Joanna, I was wrong. After everything, I realized that companionship is more important than money. I didn't know how to cherish before, always putting myself first and hurting those who cared about me. Now I know I was wrong. Joanna, can you give me another chance?
Even if I give you a chance, can you bring Margaret back to life?
Alice looked at Joanna, the light in her eyes gradually dimming. Just then, John came back from grocery shopping.
What are you doing here?
Alice's eyes lit up again, and she knelt in front of John, tightly hugging his legs.
Honey, I know I was wrong. Can you let Joanna take me back?
John said nothing, but his hand holding the groceries began to tremble. For decades, John had always felt that Alice had married beneath her. If he wanted to take her back now, Joanna had no standing to oppose it. Joanna frowned at John, but he handed her the groceries and kicked Alice away.
Too late. Allowing Joanna to send you support money is my greatest mercy.
Joanna's heart, which had been hanging, finally settled. After that, she never saw Alice again. Rachel told her that Alice, filled with resentment, lived in a daze every day and soon developed cancer. Having been cared for all her life but scheming against others, Alice ultimately passed away alone in the old house in the countryside. When she was found, Alice was clutching a family photo, her body covered in maggots. After all, she was Joanna's mother, so Joanna took her daughter to handle her funeral. John, upon hearing the news, firmly refused to see Alice.
I figured it out the day she danced with that old man. All these years, I owe her nothing. You go fulfill your duty as a daughter. As her ex-husband, I have no obligation to see her off.
Later, John even bought a burial plot as far away from Alice's as possible. After everything was settled, Joanna's daughter asked her at the grave,
Mom, wasn't Grandma your mother? Why did she die so alone?
Joanna patted her daughter's head and smiled.
If a person only cares about themselves, others naturally won't care about them.
The end.